But it's a great picture anyway. The really interesting thing was that for the 2004 presidential election, I was working in the Winchell neighborhood as a precinct worker. And this very elderly gentleman came up whose name was Barnes. And I asked him what the heck. I said, any relation to Charlie Barnes from Barnes Printing? And he said, why, yes, actually. And so I looked at him and I said, do you still have the miniature printing press? And he said, yes, I do, in my closet. So it was, and he was just really freaked because who would know that story? The story about it was written in 1940, you know? So I read newspapers. I tell people I've been reading them since 1850.
Is the Barnes company today printing? Are they sending with that?
I do not know. I don't know whether it's been bought out, but they were, I mean, it was, they were active for a very long time. I remember them when I was younger. I remember seeing Barnes still around as a printing company. These are just some houses that are gone, and I thought you might like to see pretty houses. This was on the south side of Cedar, pretty much behind where Blue Dolphin is now. That's gone. A lot of my pictures, by the way, are from the library collection, and they are available on the website. If you ever want to take a trip down memory lane, you can just see so many wonderful old pictures there. This is the Octagon House that is on the corner of Dutton and Rose. If you've ever noticed that there's a wonderful wooden two-story Octagon house there. The porch is nowhere near as nice today as it was then, but it's an absolutely wonderful, wonderful house. This is on pretty much where the new part of the Carver Center is, on Cedar between Potter and Park. That's a beautiful house. And you, well, see, I wanted to go back. The little house next to it, very typical Greek Revival, obviously much younger. These two houses are two of my favorite in the neighborhood too. They're right down the street from my folks' house because I grew up on Oak between Axtell and Forest. And these two are on the corner of Axtell on the north side. The white one here is owned by Pat Bullard, a fine electrician. And it's in the historic district, so he called me up and he said, I'm really having a lot of trouble with this. We put the new roof on, but I want you to come and take a look at this. And he couldn't figure out why he couldn't run the chases in the walls. And between the time that he called me and the time that he actually, that I got a chance to go out and see him, he had pulled off some of the plaster and lath to see what the problem was. Well, the problem was that the house is made of concrete. So there was no space in the stud walls for him to run his chases. And then I read an article just a few weeks ago. I found an article that explained how they did that. And this guy was making it up as he went along because concrete came to Kalamazoo as a useful building material around 1877. Okay? So at that point in time, it was pretty much used for floors and sidewalks and really not for upright construction, maybe a little bit of cast block, but not an awful lot. If you ever get a chance to go to Ladies' Library, look at the front, the porch floor is a black and white diamond patterned concrete. It was built in 1878, and that was cutting edge. That was the newest material. That was the vinyl of its day, only better. Okay? And then if you ever get a chance to go inside the receiving vault at Mountain Home Cemetery, you will see the same floor. 1878, built that same year. So what Richard said was, he said, yes, I may be a nurseryman by trade, I may grow things, but I've decided I'm going to try to build my house using this brand new technology. And what they did was they built a balloon frame house, standard balloon frame stud construction, and then they took a bunch of soap and they boiled it up with water till it was about the consistency of maple syrup. And then you take it and you put boards on the side of your stud space, and you slather that soap all over the boards. And then, just because you're making this up as you go along and you have no idea whether it's really necessary or not, you take a bunch of the longest nails you can find and you drive them in from the outside so all these teeth of nails are sticking into the stud space. Then you fill it with concrete. Then you go away and you come back the next day or a day or two later. You take the boards off and they didn't stick because they were smeared with soap. And then you put them up the next layer and then you fill it up again. And you keep going like that until you get to the very top. And then when you're done, at the very top, what you do is you stick in the September 28th, 1880 Detroit Free Press social section, which is what Pat found when he got to the top of it. And then you put some more of mortar on the outside and you make it look, I mean, it's wonderful. It really looks like it's a stone house with these wonderful framing parts on it and everything. It's a relatively small house, but it looks really, really wonderful. And this worked out so well that he decided to do the one next door as well in a slightly different design. This is more of an Italianate, this is a little bit more of a Queen Anne, but this one is painted red, but when you get up close, you see the scoring looks like brick, and it has what looks like our limestone lintels over the windows, but it's not, it's all concrete. Okay? So I'm not sure, I haven't been able to prove it yet, but I believe that these are possibly two of the earliest, if not the earliest, concrete houses in the state of Michigan. I don't know. Thomas Edison did a whole bunch in New Jersey in 1906 or something like that, but this was way earlier than that. And then I have not been able to find a thing about this man since then. This is all I know about him, is like half of one page, and the evidence of what he accomplished here. And I don't know whether it was his idea or whether it was his contractor's idea or whether it was his brother-in-law. I mean, I just do not know. So if you ever meet someone named Owen that seems to be transfixed by concrete, let them get a hold of me. So this is the 1883 Birdseye Map, and you can see things have changed a little bit. For one thing, Oak Street goes through now. No, that's Westnedge again. Oak Street does not go through yet. But see this little end down here? This is Empire Street. Okay, so this is past Axtell, and this is about where my little concrete house is, right there. Okay, so this is, the neighborhood didn't change all that much, but they've shaved a little bit more off the hillsides there, so they're still working on trying to shape it. This is Asylum Avenue, and again, this is Davis Street. We've got a few more houses going on here, so the little tiny farmlets are being taken up with housing now. And it's a much more neighborhood that's filling up a lot more. This is the Pioneer Cemetery Park, so that's still the cemetery there, and then these spaces in here are still pretty empty in the center of the blocks. But that bur oak forest we've got going there in the park is still there. There's actually a gentleman who has documented all of them. He's mapped where they are and measured, and he's mapped that entire park with his best understanding of how old the trees actually are. This is the house I told you about. It is still there. The first owners were Robert and Rhoda Smith, 1885 to 1895, and when they had it, actually, the porch did not wrap around. It stopped about here. But it did have the wonderful turret and the tall chimney and everything. When the Olins took it over, W. Washington, W.W., and Mary Olin, in 1895, they added this wraparound porch. And those are probably two of their daughters, Blanche and Margaret, on the porch. I can't say that for sure. I'm just guessing. People tended to put their daughters on the porches or their kids on the porch to show it. This house is still there. This was designed by, I think I saw it was either Billingham and Cobb or Kingscott in the 1950s to wrap around this house. Yeah.
The house on the top, is that owned by Bill Bob Altman now?
No.
Is that the one that's right down the street on West Main from Central High School?
No, this is at the corner of Axtell and Westnedge. So this is about 4 blocks down. It has some of the same spirit. Yeah, it's the barber shop now. And it's absolutely a wonderful house. And they took off the tower. And the next time you go down there, take a look, because I still haven't made my mind up on this. Because if you take a look at exactly what that tower looks like, and then take a look at the house that's immediately next door that has a tower that looks exactly like that, and then you see that the one at the house next door is supported on 4x4s, and the one here has clearly been truncated by that wonderful aluminum siding job, and I just wonder whether someone got whimsical and decided to transplant it. But I have no proof. So it's just look at the houses and say, but this is what used to be there, and the one there looks exactly like it. But I don't know. But it's covered with that brick siding, or used to be.
The retail put along?
That was a that was put on probably, I think it was the 1950s, and it was architect designed at the time. So I was impressed to find out that it was, I thought, oh, okay. This house is listed on the National Register of Historic Places. This is the Edgar and Lydia Brees house, and it's a wonderful house out of Wheaton. It's the second house in from the corner on the south side of the street between Wheaton and Merrill. And one of the things that impressed me was the Breeses weren't all that impressive, but the fact that the family that came after them lived there for 40 years, which is a fairly long time. And then we also had a whole series of some of the stellar people from our arts community living in there for a while. Gregory Millar, Kirk Newman, the sculptor, and Jerry Cialdella and his wife lived there for a while in the 80s. So this has had a lot of very artistic type people through it now, and now it is a student rental with a blow-up doll in the window frequently. So you can tell I live in the neighborhood still, you know. I know the house will deal with it, I'm just not sure I can.
That was, we used to call it the Cayley House, a chemistry teacher.
Really?
At
He lived there?
Huh?
Okay, Mr. Cayley was.
I had him too.
Did you? Yeah. He told us. He told me when I was in high school, he said, there's no such thing as any elements beyond 98. He said he did not believe in them, they don't exist. And I wasn't going to argue with him because at that time I didn't know what he was talking about. Now I do. So the streetcars were one of the things that really tied the city together. 1883-84 was a huge, huge year for Kalamazoo because we got the streetcars, we got the Academy of Music, we got a lot more of the streets paved. By this, and we had streetcars running on Oakland and on Rose, and I think down Westinge, but I'm not sure because I think if they did, Westinge Hill I know was a huge, huge challenge for them. No, they did go up Westinge because I have seen pictures of the streetcar tracks. Yeah, obviously, when there were horse cars, no horses were going up Westinge Hill with a streetcar behind them, 20 mule team streetcars.